All right, so we are now recording. Welcome to ITS 372. Let's go ahead and take a look at Brightspace and just look at the whole environment. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so you should be seeing my screen there. So this is ITS 372 right there. Just click on that link so everyone should have access to it. These are the Zoom instructions, as you can see. Okay, and then we're going to go over to content. That's usually so this class, usually in my experience, 372, there's about half of the students I usually already know, and then half of the students are new. So basically, then I'll talk a little bit about how we can do things in the class, you know, and everything like that. This should be a fun class, you know. Basically, we learn how to use Linux all semester, the Linux operating system. Usually at this point, a lot of students don't have that much experience with Linux. So basically, it's a good introduction to the class or to the topic of Linux. And we do it from the point of view of not how to create an operating system, but how to manage one, and hence the name system administration. Administrating and managing a system, in this case, a Linux operating system, and just learning how that works, getting comfortable with the environment, as you will no doubt use Linux later on in your career. Okay. So let's start with, so basically, if you're not familiar, this is Brightspace. We have several, these are the modules for the course. I've already posted all the materials that we will be using in the semester. You can see how they are. Usually the admin module, that's where I put in the syllabus. Okay, so we have the syllabus there. I'm gonna go ahead and okay. So I'm just gonna mute your microphones, because otherwise it creates like a little static in the background, and then the video sounds a little. But just raise your hand or unmute yourself if you have any questions. All right, so there's two resources actually that I use for the course. There is Brightspace, of course, and then I usually also have an additional website where I kind of keep track of the calendar, and where I post the videos in a nice calendar format. So you can see here, this is the course. You can just go to this URL, so myname.com, right? And you can find in there your course, so spring 2022, Linux System Administration and Management. So you can click on that. And this has all the information. So I'll usually reference this whenever I want to add like links, etc. And also I have my calendar here. I've updated this calendar already. So this will pretty much be exactly how things are going to take place in the semester. And I even have the video recordings there already from last year. All right, so, and for the most part, videos will be similar, although I'll be posting the new videos. So I'll be changing, unless I think that a video is from last year is good as an additional resource, then you can take a look at it as well. Okay, so basically 2 resources. This website, you should always check it out, as this is the quickest way that I like upload links to various things. And also the Brightspace, of course. And, you know, Brightspace will have it, you know, the additional materials. Brightspace will also have it will be the mechanism for you to upload your homework assignments, get your homework assignments, get your grades, and so on. So that's really the idea. So let's start, I guess, with the syllabus. Just, take a look at that first. And then after that, we will go over the website, and then we can start the class. All right, so as you should be seeing the syllabus now, as you can see the title of the course, this is ITS 372, System Administration and Management for Spring 2022. Now I'm Professor Calix, so you have my contact information there. Office hours will be Tuesday and Thursday between 4 and 6, so right after this class, basically. Right after this class, you can contact me. So basically just say, after this class, if you want to talk or something. The prereqs for this course are the 135 class, which is your, if I remember correctly, your operating systems class. Okay, so that class is like a sysadmin on the Windows side. This class is a sysadmin on the Linux side. So that's kind of the idea there. Also, another requirement is 270, your networking your networking course, just because by the nature of a Linux operating system, there will be some network related topics, right? That obviously an operating system connects to a network and so on. Now the textbooks, you're not required to get any textbooks. However, these are the textbooks that I usually have used in the course in the past, but I basically all my notes and material comes from here. So in theory, you wouldn't have to, because I provided the slides or I provided notes, and so you can take a look at all of those. So the books are The Practice of System and Network Administration. Just get the latest edition. This book is mainly just a managerial book, so it's got no technical information whatsoever. So it's, because this class is about sysadmin, there's a few concepts about sysadmin that are just managerial, like being, treating your customers well, that kind of thing. So about organizing your time, etc. So some of the comments on that book is basically non-technical, and but it's actually good. So it's one of the, I mix in the technical with the non-technical in a way that doesn't make the class too boring, hopefully. And so we will be using some of the content from that book. I have basically taken everything from these books and just made it into slides. So all the slides are there and you can just read the slides. So definitely no need to buy this book. The other two books, you might consider buying them, although they're not required. So one of them is a really good book, actually. It's called Essential System Administration, Tools and Techniques for Linux and Unix for Administration by Frisch. This is a great book. This is like, when people call, like the Linux Bible. So definitely, it's got a lot of great explanations, about Linux, how to use Linux, etc. Just get the latest edition if you want to get it. I think it's a little bit pricey because it's pretty dense. So again, you're not required, but that's a book that might be worth buying if you have an interest in it. And then the other book that I sometimes reference is Python for Unix and Linux System Administration. So that's basically one of the goals of this class, is not just to talk about how you would manually do everything on the command line or on the computer, but actually how to automate that process. Because let's say that you want to add user accounts to a server, right, or a computer, and you have to do that every week, right? Every week you have to add 150 user accounts to that operating system. Would you like to have to do that manually every week? No, right? You would like to just have like a text file of the users, because you'll probably have a text file, right? And then just run a script and then have the script automate the process for you. So that's kind of one of the main themes or objectives of this course, is just really to show you how to automate things. So that's why there's the mix of the three books. There's like the solid Linux commands. There's like the solid, just managerial, high level recommendations, and then there's the Python automation. So there's a lot of scripting languages that you could use in an operating system. There, traditionally there was Perl, there's Python, there's Bash, of course. And just, I think the most accessible one is Python's the easiest. You guys have taken a little bit of Python, hopefully in 140. And so it kind of just, and Python just every day becomes more and more a standard because just the nature of it, right? So we'll be using that language this semester for the automation of system administration. So this is not a programming class, right? So I want you to understand, I might in the first week just give like some basics of how to get around with Python, but in general, it's basically very straightforward scripting, little things. Okay, are there any questions so far, guys?
No.
No questions? Everything making sense? All right, good. So I don't see any people in the waiting room. Okay. All right, so let's continue then. So yeah, so the course description, of course, the course covers topics on computer system administration with a focus on Unix. Remember, Unix is really the main name of the operating system, and then there's various versions of it. We'll be using Linux Ubuntu. That will be our platform, and what you learn in that operating system would scale basically to or transfer to other versions, what are called distros of Linux, like Red Hat and all of that. And also keep in mind, even on Windows now, you have like a Linux type of a command prompt, so you can do commands. Windows has tried to create the same ideas of scripting and with PowerShell, etc. So although the language syntax might be different, the concepts and the ideas would apply to other operating systems. So eventually you guys should be able to do that on your own. But the focus of this course is the Linux operating system. So some of the topics here, I'll just briefly mention them. So we'll do system performance analysis. And what that means is you just want to look at the server, right? You want to look at the server and say, okay, how much RAM was used in a week, or how many users were there, that kind of thing. So that's, you're benchmarking the usage of your operating system, if you will. And so that's this idea of system performance analysis, benchmarking, monitoring services. So we'll look at some of the protocols that have traditionally existed, such as the SNMP, et cetera, so that it just gives us an idea of how we can do things. Although nowadays, a lot of those are solutions that companies want to sell to you. So, but we will just look at it from the point of view of, like a protocol, and then, you could even create your own applications. There's testing and debugging, there's configuration of Unix services, right? So we'll talk, obviously that. Security strategies, which basically just means, security, obviously, of an operating system. So we'll take a look at some scenarios of what that is, device hardening, etc. And so it's basically a lot of tools, right? So a lot of commands, a lot of tools, etc. File system analysis. So we'll take a look at what that means. That kind of dives in a little bit into forensics, although you guys have a forensics course. So I'll just briefly mention that from the point of view of just Linux. And then obviously, as I say, set automation and auditing. So scripting, just learning to pretty much, the main point is that you should take away this understanding that you can literally automate anything in an operating system. All right. And so that's, and that's really how you're going to be efficient and save tons of hours on your work. Okay. So whether you apply to a Mac, Linux, Windows, whatever, what's important is that you understand that you can do that and the basic underlying core principles. We'll talk, of course, about server roles, and what that means is, what am I using this server for? Am I using it for some kind of a file distribution system, or as a web server, email server, print server, etc. Right? So as you know, when you have an operating system like Linux, and then you start a service and you open a port for it, it basically assumes that role. All right. And so that's really one of the main ideas. In fact, every other week or so, we'll be exploring, okay, now the role of the server is so-and-so. It needs to be a DNS server. Okay, so if it's a DNS server, we need to configure bind, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then we do all this, and then we're gonna test it. Okay, so remember, this class, the goal is that you become very comfortable with Linux. Okay, so it's not about memorization per se. I don't expect you to just tell me, oh, what's the command for this or that? You should be able to find it though, and you should be able to know it. So in all the labs, I usually provide the commands, so it should not be difficult at all. And then just expect a lot of lab exercises. This course will have a homework assignment pretty much every week. Some of the assignments are extensive, and they will gradually get more difficult. Okay, so just be aware of that. So the assignments will start pretty easy this week. Today, I'm just really motivating the course and discussing the administrative things. Okay, so course objectives. So you can see some of the topics there. We have, SNMP, configuration of Linux, automation and auditing. We're going to look at the automatic job scheduling system called cron tabs in Linux, which is really powerful. So that's a built-in way of scheduling things you'll find very interesting, I'm sure. We'll talk about, as I said, server roles, understanding scripting in the context of Unix, the Unix file system, which obviously that's central to Linux because we want to know where everything should go in the operating system. I provided slides for all of this. So they come from all the books actually. So, but you can just read the slides. That should be very useful to you. User and group management. So obviously, like I said, we're going to talk, that falls under the topic of domains. And so we'll talk about domains and then users, groups, how that works. I'll explain all of that. I mean, what my assumption is that you guys have no knowledge of Linux basically. So we're going to start from scratch and just build your skills. Certainly for the courses in your bachelor's, you will be using Linux a lot of the time. And so in other classes, you will use Windows, but this is really to help you with the Linux side and just to become comfortable with it. Some of the administrative things, as I said, we're going to learn what a help desk is, and education and training, administrative issues, etc. Okay. All right, as far as the grading criteria, so we've got, basically, you can see the picture here on the syllabus. Labs are worth 50% of your grade. Make sure that you do your labs. Okay, that's the biggest recommendation I can give you. Do them well. Solve the problems, because the labs, if you start missing a lot of labs, it will really affect your grade. You will have 3 exams, one exam at week 6, one exam at week 12, and the final exam, each worth 10% of your grade, 10 points. I have 10% of your grade just associated to quizzes, teamwork and participation, professionalism in the classroom, that kind of thing. And then finally, there's 10% of your grade, which is allocated to 2 term projects, actually. So there's 2 term projects that I assign. Each one is worth 5% of your grade, so 5 points, Project A and Project B. So Project A is really a Linux configuration problem. So I'm going to give you, at the end of the semester, a hard Linux configuration problem where you have to configure a Linux machine for something, right? And that will bring in a lot of the skills that you learn throughout the semester, right? So you learn how to create users, and you learn how to set up, services, and you learn how to configure symbolic links, and all these things will come together for you to be able to deploy a more complex service, okay? But that will be a project. It's worth 5% of your grade. And then project B is usually just some open-ended project where you have to research a topic. For instance, this is an example. We may not cover configuring a Linux Ubuntu server or machine to become an email server, right? So then that could be your project. You just decide, okay, my term project is going to be that I'm going to take a Linux Ubuntu machine and I'm going to configure it to be an email server, if that makes sense. Okay. So that's basically the idea. Any questions about the grading, guys? All right, doesn't sound like there's any questions. Okay, so it's currently recording. Just keep in mind, please, if you can just help me out. If you see at some point that it's not recording or the audio is bad or something along those lines, please let me know. All right, read the rest, of course. The most important thing here is make sure that you only submit your assignments via Brightspace. Please do not email me homework. Emailed homework is not accepted, so it's got to be submitted via Brightspace. The other thing is the way that I want you to submit your homework. So the only thing that I need for you to submit is a report. It can be a PDF or a Word document, and in that PDF or Word document, you have to basically solve whatever problems I gave you, and you have to provide screenshots of let's say you wrote a script, so you have to show evidence that the script actually ran. Or you were supposed to configure a service, you have to show evidence that the service is running. So you have to, when you understand the question and you understand the solution, then it should be easy for you to be able to say, oh, yeah, if I show my professor these screenshots and this information, he'll know that I know I did it correctly. All right, so I leave it on you. It's almost like the burden of proof is on you, right? So you have to provide that. So make sure you submit the report for your assignments. Are there any questions about that, guys? Oh, all right, good. Yeah, so I get this question a lot about formatting specifically. There is no specific format. It's just, I only care about the substance or the content. So just make sure, from my point of view, that when I read it, it's easy for me to determine, oh yeah, they did it correctly. Okay. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions. So please read all of this carefully. A lot of not rules, but a lot of guidelines and suggestions. For security and everything, make sure you read through this. If you have issues with mental health or COVID-related issues, the Office of the Dean of Students is a great resource that you can contact. All right, this is the schedule. I usually provide it here, but I'm actually going to rely more on the one I have in my calendar on the website here, because this one is where I actually put the videos and everything. So it's a little bit more correct. But here I provided it as well. It's basically just the same list of topics that we will be covering through the semester. All right, and that concludes the syllabus. Okay. Let's go ahead now and just show. So that's basically module 1, the admin. That's your syllabus. In this one, you can see here These are going to be the projects A and B. Obviously, I just copied this from last semester, so I'll change these dates or create new links, you know, whatever. But these will be the projects that I already talked about, and you can see that you will submit them there at the end of the semester. There's this folder here, resources. Whenever I want to provide some kind of a document that might help you, I'll provide it here. So here, for instance, there's two, you know, we are going to use virtualization, so we're going to use virtual machines. So there's, as you know, two tools that you can use. There's VMware Professional, or there is a VirtualBox. So actually in the course this semester, we're planning to use VirtualBox, but VMware is also available to you if you want to install it and just use it. Just be aware that the VM that we're going to be using is actually built for VirtualBox. So if you want to use it in VMware, you'll probably have to convert it. So you have to literally convert it to the VMware Professional compliant VM. And that just has to do with cost. You know, VMware has become a little bit expensive, and VirtualBox is out there now. Works really well. So a lot of resources have gravitated towards that. And so we should be fine, I believe, with VirtualBox this semester. But as I said, you can create virtual machines on VMware if you'd like. This is just a document to help you to do something like that. There's also videos that I'll discuss in a second that you can take a look at for that. This PPA2 eCapture. So this is basically part of this course throughout the semester, not every week, but every other week or every few weeks, you'll have to do a reading assignment. And the reading assignment is basically, basically the topic is about networking issues, right? So for instance, if you're a system administrator and a printer is not working, you know, what might be, from the point of view of the network, what might be some of the problems? And so those are going to be some nice reading assignments like that. And the way it works is, one of the tools that you need to use this semester is something called Wireshark. So the goal of that is actually to make you become just more familiar with Wireshark as a tool for sysadmin. So the easiest thing to do is, you know, you basically read through this document, but the document has these files, right? So these compressed PCAP files, packet captures. So what you're going to do is, as you're reading, you can open the corresponding PCAP file in Wireshark and kind of follow along. As you read the document, you will also kind of in Wireshark, you know, click here, click there, and kind of look at what they're describing. So the result of that is that you're going to submit some summaries, and they're going to be just pretty short, one-page summaries, just to show evidence that you've done the work. That's basically all it is. But it should be, this should be a fun thing. And so anyway, this is just a resource for that. So make a note of that. All right, so that's kind of all the administrative things. And now the next module, intro, is basically this week's module. So this is what we will be discussing this week. So as you can see here, I group everything by modules, and a module is usually what we're doing that week, okay, more or less. But I don't like to say week 1, week 2, week 3, because then I get confused of what I did on week 2 or 3. So I just do it by the topic basically. So intro obviously is the very first week. So here I have a Word document. There's the Ubuntu manual. There's a PowerPoint. There's a homework assignment that I'll create on Wednesday. And you can see there's, with this class, sometimes we do several things. So I may actually, let's say we have, like in this week, we have a Linux commands homework, and then we have a scripting homework. So I don't like putting a lot of homework like in the same document, right? I don't like because especially because it's different problems, like some are scripting, some are just Linux commands, and then it makes grading very inconsistent. So I like to separate. So scripting, you might have 4 scripts there, and so each one is 25%, and then Linux commands, you might have 20, and then each one is worth whatever that is. And so I like to just break up the homework into different links like this. So you'll see me do that. But homework, I'll usually talk about, like on today's Tuesday, so on Thursday. Okay, on Thursday, I usually, once we've covered the topic for the week, we will, I'll assign a homework, and then you have 1 week to submit it. So for instance, on Thursday, we'll have the lab, we'll have the homework assigned, and so it'll be due 1 week from Thursday by 10 p.m. Now, what I usually do is I create a soft deadline and a hard deadline. So that means the homework is due by Thursday at 10 p.m., but the link will stay open until Saturday, right? So just some of you might work, that day, and so I'm being a little bit flexible in your submission. Okay. Any questions so far, guys? Please stop me at any time if you have any questions or is anything you want to know. All right. So that's just, that's kind of what we will be doing this week. So I'll come back to this in a second. I just want to go over the calendar. I like to lay out everything very precisely so that you know what to expect and when to expect it. So that's really what I like to do in the calendar. So let's just go over, let me share that. All right. So this is the course website. As I said, you can go to that URL and find the up-to-date course schedule. You can see here I have a little bit more description. Topics include Linux workstations, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that. Server roles, which are Linux services, basically. We'll learn some of the terminology, obviously. We'll talk a little bit about data centers, disaster recovery, security, distributed system administration and monitoring, help desk, file system analysis, system performance gathering, debugging, namespaces, user account management, SNMP, system maintenance management, email, print services, backups, remote access, and of course, all of it will involve scripting. So scripting is not like a thing that I'm just going to show 1 week or at the end of the semester. We will be doing scripting for every assignment. So usually and it'll be what you have to do. So usually I'll give you the commands. This is how you create 1 account. And then I'll say, now do the script for 30 accounts at a time, right? So obviously I'll provide some help with that. And actually I already have, I'll talk about the channel, but I already have a whole bunch of videos that you can always just reference if you want to get ahead. So let me see, there's something in the chat. Yeah, so one thing I said is that we are not using Windows, okay? This is a Linux class. Okay, so there will be no Windows. The whole point of this course is to get your brains to forget Windows, you know what I mean? So this is a Linux course, so we will be using either VMware or preferably VirtualBox to run a virtual machine, okay? Which will be a Linux Ubuntu machine, and then you will do everything on that machine. You will learn literally as much as I can teach you in 1 semester about the Unix operating system and Linux and how to use it and manage it. Does that make sense? All right, great. All right, so no Windows here. All right. Yeah, so I said that. So I was saying, so the scripting will happen in every assignment, right? There will be, I always make an effort, and I always create at least 1 or 2 new little problems involving some scripting. The point is that it should be your your prime directive, if you will, right? Your prime goal to always automate everything to become more efficient. All right, these are the books, the same books that were on the syllabus. So I already talked about them. I already talked about office hours, so Thursday 4 to 6, right after this class, basically. So that kind of works out for you guys. Here are the VMs. So there are several VMs that you can take a look at and play with. Also, you can just create your own VM if you want. That's perfectly fine. I would recommend you create a Ubuntu 2004 Linux machine if you'd like to just even do that for VirtualBox. However, we're just going to use the seed Ubuntu VM, so you can just click on this link here and then just go to lab setup. Oh, sorry. No, just actually this lab environment setup here, and then there it is, right? So virtual machine software is VirtualBox, and then here you have where's the 20? Oh, here it is. I'm sorry. There it is. So I was correct, actually. All right. So let me go back. All right. So when you click on seed Ubuntu, right, just click on that and then go to lab setup, and then you just have to go down. So we're not going to using cloud Ubuntu, so you can explore this, right? So creating a seed VM on the cloud, that's, that might be fun for you to do. All right. But notice look at what it's doing, right? What are these? You should recognize that all of these are Linux commands. Okay, and so these are the things that we're going to be learning to do this semester, right? So what is SSH and what is kill and all these things. So we'll come back to this a little bit later. So for now, probably it might be recommended that you stay away from cloud. We might come back to that later, and instead just focus on the VMs that are available. So the first question you might ask is, why are there so many numbers, right? So why is one 1204, one is 1604, one is 2004? I actually had another one 1804. So what that means is just the release version that they're currently on. So 2004 is basically the one that we are going to use because it's currently it came out just not too long ago. So, this is important, right? The decision that you make of what VM you use is pretty important. So for instance, if you pick 1204, what's the problem with that? 1204 has already been phased out. So they're no longer supporting it. So although you might be able to get a 1204 and it might work, when you try to update it and install programs, it's going to give you a problem. So that's an issue. 1604, this one, I think it's already been phased out as well, but so again, that might be a problem. Then there's 1804, which is one I have as one of the links in the website. You might want to use 1804. Maybe that's still in service. There's a lot of information about it, but it's not the latest one. 2004 might be the latest one, and it's great and all, but the problem with this one is, let's say you want to configure some obscure service. So for instance, let's say that I ask you to install Hadoop, create a distributed cluster of 3 computers that work together in parallel as a single computer. And that's called, and I want you to use a framework called Hadoop. Well, that sounds exciting, but as it turns out, that is still pretty buggy in 2004. It might be pretty good in 1804 because all the bugs have been worked out, and even more importantly, there's a lot of what do you call it? There's a lot of documents online. There's a lot of documents online, a lot of websites that explain how to do things. Do you see that? Whereas 2004, it still has a couple of bugs that people may have figured out, but they haven't documented really well. So it's going to be a little bit harder for you to configure. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? And so,
Yeah.
yeah. And so that's going to be a choice that you have to make. So really at the end of the semester, I'll think of a project and you will have to decide which version. Obviously it has to be a version that's still supported, but which version will be the best for that particular task. So that's part of, being a sysadmin and everything. Okay. But for the most part, we will be using 2004 this semester. So all you have to do here, you can see, here we have a couple of approaches of how you can do this. You can build the CVM from scratch, or you can just use the one that's already created. So there's a pre-built seed Ubuntu 2004 virtual image right there, right? And you can, it's called this name, and you can just download it from one of these drives. I already have it on my computer, so I'll just open it up at some point. So the first thing, the first assignment for you, homework this semester, will be to just go here and download 2004. You're going to need, as I said, install VirtualBox, and just make sure that it runs, that you can get on it. You're going to need it, by the way, by Thursday. All right, on Thursday in the lab, I'll just start. We're going to open up Linux. We're going to open up a terminal, and we're just going to start typing away. Okay. So, and then they install the free VirtualBox. You can see here it is. Just make sure you read through this, but here's the link for VirtualBox, and read through it, of course. This class is a lot of installation. You can't take a system administration class, learn about Linux without having to install a couple of things, right? So you'll be installing a lot of software intentionally. We like to have the Linux operating system be pretty default so that you can install a lot of the services, okay? All right, so that's the VM environment. Are there any questions about the VMs? All right, I'm not hearing any questions. So let's go ahead and continue. So we talked about a little bit about the projects. So remember, project A, it could be something like a Hadoop cluster. I always look for something difficult, right? It's a project. So I want you to use everything that you learn in the class. So that's what I did last semester, the Hadoop cluster. I might do something else. I don't know. It just depends on what I'll think about by the end of the semester. Project B is just select a topic and system administration, such as a service or scripting technique. And then you will need to present it and demo it using your Linux VM. So obviously it has to be Linux. You need to, one thing is that I noticed in this class is that students resist Linux, okay? So you've used Windows your whole life, no doubt, and you know Windows very well probably. And so you just want to do everything in Windows. Remember, the point of this is to show you another operating system, right? For you to become comfortable with Linux. Okay, not to memorize commands, just to become comfortable that you know how things work. So that's why the class involves a lot of just, typing on the command line. Usually that's the only problem I see. Students, it's not that it's difficult, it's that they resist and they always go back to Windows. You need to give yourself room in this class to just experiment with Linux, and try to find the value in it, okay? Learn that topic. So that's definitely my recommendation. All right, so as you can see, I'm recording this video, right? I'm recording it right now. You can see that's being recorded. Right, so it's being recorded. So at the end of tonight, I'll create the video and I will upload it on YouTube. So there's a YouTube channel. You can click on this here. Now I use this for all the courses. So what you have to do is you have to kind of find the course the course title. So in the past, for instance, when I've taught 372, you can see that there, right? So I'll put in ITS 372. This time around, I'll put like 2022 or something so that you can distinguish, but it'll be the most recent videos. And so they'll be posted here and you can just get them. Just YouTube is just it's super easy to, I don't have to worry about anything. I just have to upload them. So that's the best thing. Additionally, I will be posting in the calendar the links, okay? So that way, you know, if today is January, now notice last year I was teaching this Mondays and Wednesdays. This year I'm teaching it, I guess, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So just be aware of that. I didn't want to change all these colors, so it's just, but it's basically what we do on Tuesday is what appears on Monday. What we do on Thursday is what appears on Wednesday, okay? I don't think that's too confusing, so just take a look. All right, GitHub. I also use GitHub for the scripts, okay? So this is actually pretty important. You can see here under my repositories, you should be seeing that. Yeah. All right, so under, if you go to my repositories here, you'll see under Unix and Python scripting, okay? So click on that and you will see that I pretty much provided a lot of the scripts for this course. Now, sometimes these scripts are incomplete, especially when they are a homework assignment, right? So if they're like a homework assignment, then it's basically the demo that I do in class up until there, and the rest is for you to solve, okay? So, but all I'm saying is, although I'm recording everything and you'll see me type up some scripts, you know, usually they're already available. So you can just study them on your own. That's just, you know, to avoid typos and those kinds of things. So obviously that, you know, I have some in folders and they're specific to some of the things that we will do. The first set of scripts that we will take a look at are the basics here. So this is what we're going to start with on Thursday. I will be going over this, and this is just kind of, I'm assuming also, although some of you may have had Python before, that, you know, that none of you have it. And so we're going to just, on the Linux environment, we're going to start with how do we, you know, open an editor, etc. in Python. And then I'm just going to write a few Python scripts just to get everyone on the same page, okay? Now remember, this is not a coding class or a scripting class necessarily. So it's just about knowing how to solve the problem, okay? Don't over stress about the coding, because I usually, like I said, I provided the scripts. I want to show you how they work, although sometimes I will provide, you will have to finish them. Okay, so this will definitely should be an important resource for you to look at, you know, the scripts, to know where they are, okay? And then I have this category, just useful. So these are common questions that I've gotten over the years. And so I've created things, you know, so for instance, VM workstation, there's the link, the seed Ubuntu pre-built virtual machine, you can get it from there. How to create the CVM video and how to create the CVM using VMware if you want to do that. And then a few other things, Wireshark, etc. Okay, so these are just useful links. As I see questions that students keep asking me, I just end up creating a document or a video and just put it up on here. So certainly whenever you have a doubt or a question, please check out all these links. You know, the seed Ubuntu VM has a lot of information about how to configure VirtualBox and everything. So please make sure to take a look at that. And you can also take a look at these VMs if you want to. Any questions so far?
Which one do you recommend we download? The 16 or the 18?
I actually recommend that you download the 2004. So this one. 2004? Okay. So the first one. See how, I guess I didn't write 2004, but it's, you see, it's the 3 links, right? So 2004, 1604, 1804. So definitely 2004. Got it? This one,
Got it.
lab setup, and then this one right here. Okay. All right, sounds like that's clear. Okay, so so that's basically as far as the VM. So that's really your first homework assignment for this week. By Thursday, have the VM, because on Thursday I will just start with the VM, start typing up some things just to get everyone to follow along, right? As I said, to use Linux a little bit more. All right. So that's pretty much everything administrative. And then after that, like I said, the calendar is here. So the first topic for this week is this one, right? So this is the first week. So I've already done the intro, syllabus, calendar, and everything, that resources. So now we should be ready to start the content, basically the topic for this week. All right, so for this week, obviously we're going to start in the two basic things, right? So what do system administrators do? And that's just a set of lecture. It's a lecture, some slides that will give us some intuition of what a system administrator does. So obviously they support the IT function, right? They support the IT function. So that might mean supporting Windows computers, Linux computers, servers, a data center, networking equipment, etc. So there's a lot of those. And in particular for this course, we will just look at how to configure and deal with the Linux operating system. Okay, so that's what system administrators do. And then so that's what I'm going to do today. With whatever time we have left today, I'll just go over these slides and kind of cover them. And then on Thursday, actually, we will, I didn't realize that I hadn't moved it to Tuesday and Thursday. So, and then on Thursday, we will just go over Linux basics, okay? So Linux basics just literally means open a terminal, type some commands, what is ls, what is pwd, what, all these commands, right? So we're going to start learning about them, and then we will more formally start defining what Linux is and so on, okay? And then really quickly next week, we will get into what is Python scripting. So we'll do some coding just to get everyone on the same page, and we'll do some problems, hopefully some fun problems, so that you can see right away. So these first 2 weeks are kind of, for some of you that may have had this before, it's kind of a review. For those of you that haven't had it, it's an introduction, of course. It's really my way of getting everyone on the same page. And then really on week 3, we'll start what is the Unix way. So that really, we start the individual topics and so on. Okay, guys? All right, so I'm not hearing any questions. So now let's go ahead and switch over to the content. All right, so that's going to be in module 1, we'll take a look at intro. So there's a few documents here. There's going to be a couple of homework assignments, as I said, one just about the Linux commands, one about the scripting, but I'll talk about that on Wednesday. There's also this link. I strongly recommend that you take a look at it, read through it. It's basically the Ubuntu manual, the VM manual. And so that's what that's going to give you. It's going to give you usernames that already exist, passwords that you might need, troubleshooting issues, so definitely take a read through it. Or you can also find it on the SEED website, and just, it's for your own information, okay? Now, before we get, so the slides are here. What do system administrators do? So we'll look at that in a second. But before we do that, let's just click on this link here. This is actually a discussion of the homeworks this week, right? So just to kind of motivate what those are going to be. So let's click on this. Okay. Let's just download it instead. All right, and you can see here, so this is what we're gonna do on Wednesday when you have your VMs. It's basically just, a few set of questions and tasks that you have to complete related to Linux. It's not on the screen. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. I forget to share all the time. Yeah. You guys should be seeing it now. Yeah. All right, so this is what we're going to do on Wednesday. It's basically, as I said, just getting to know Linux. So I'll discuss this on Wednesday, what everything is. But basically, as you can see, it's just some commands, right? So you're just going to do some commands. And then, so questions 1 through 26, you're going to submit as just Linux commands. And then questions 27 through 31 or 30 are going to be scripting examples. So I will explain those to you further. I'll provide, I'll show you, I'll demo basically how they work in the virtual machine. But I just kind of want to wait for everyone to have their VMs ready. All right, so that's going to be the document. And then now let's switch over to Brightspace again. And then here you can see, so I broke out that homework. So from the attached Word document, complete problems 1 through 26, submit a report with screenshots for each problem and answer the question. And then for this other link, complete problems 27 through 29 from the attached handout as shown in class. Okay. All right. So anyway, so that hopefully makes sense, right? That's how we're gonna do it. As I said, I just have to change the dates, but I'll address that on Thursday. All right. So that kind of gives you an idea now of the work, right? The scope. So get your VM, get your VirtualBox, get your Ubuntu 2004 from the link I showed, get that set up, make sure you can turn it on, open up a browser, go to websites, that kind of thing. Make sure it works. Make sure you can open Brightspace from it, as sometimes there's files in Brightspace that you have to download. Go to the GitHub, download all the code so you have it there, and then that way you can always reference it, the starter code. Keep in mind, during the semester, I may add more things, so not everything will be on the GitHub, but I usually try to upload anything that's not there. Right, so okay, so this is for the class, I suppose. Yeah, I know that you guys use these Discord websites, so that's fine. That's just for the students, though. I'm just going to post materials here. All right, so as I said, so hopefully it should be a lot of fun. I like scripting with Python, and so I'll try to think of, usually just new problems for you guys to solve and work through. Remember, at the end of the day, it's not about memorization. It's just about getting an understanding of the intuition of, oh yeah, I can automate this, I can script this, and Linux, of course. I want you to become comfortable with Linux, because I'm telling you, you're really going to need it in all your other classes. You will not be able to get away with using Windows. It'll be impossible. So keep that in mind. All right. So I think I've mentioned every document, everything, and now we are ready just finish up today with some slides. So as I said, for this course, let me open up. I'm going to tap to download this one. Okay, I'm going to open it. And then I'm going to have to share it. All right, so you should be seeing it now. And I'm also going to put it in a slideshow. Hopefully you see the slideshow. All right, so everyone should be seeing the slides now. As I said, these are the slides from the book, from the books, okay? I have took the trouble of just passing everything through these slides, so you can just read through this. They're pretty complete, I think. All right, so as you know, the topic is system, which in this case is Linux, administration and management. So administration kind of is, I usually think of it as the more technical part, and then management, the less technical part, the more managerial part, if you will, okay? And so, you know, this is basically the idea, okay? So we are going to explore system administration in general. But before we do that, we want to know, you know, what is sysadmin, right? So, and actually let me do this. So what do system administrators do? So think of the system administrator as the IT person, right? So these are the IT people that work, you know. So the system administrator, these are the IT people that support an organization with the technical aspects, right? The IT department, if you will. So basically all technical things. But here I'll just briefly go through these slides. I'm not gonna cover every single topic. I usually don't, okay? So I expect you to read through these because there could be questions about these on the exams, but I generally just kind of go over the big picture of the slides, and then you guys, because it's pretty self-explanatory and it would actually be really boring for you if I just read every single one of these. So, you know, essentially, basically this is going to be like the main idea, and then this is a list of specific things of that main idea, okay? And that's kind of how the slides are. So what do system administrators do? Obviously, they can build a site from scratch. So let's say you have a room. They want you to install 10 computers, the hardware and the software, right? So how are you going to do it? So you're going to, you know, build the computers, maybe build the hardware, put them together, you know, a screwdriver and everything, connect them up. Then you have to install the software. How are you going to do that? Do you do that manually or automatically? You automate that process, then you have to configure the settings, you know, all that stuff, right? So you can see that here. You have to consider a lot of things, right? What are the business priorities of the organization, et cetera, to achieve your objective. So that's, you know, they build something from scratch. They, you know, system administrators might growing a small site. They provide obviously help desk. So I think a lot of you or some of you might actually work, you know, in help desk. You know, you answer phones and you deal with computers, etc. And monitoring the services for both capacity and availability. So we will look at some tools this semester of how that process can be automated. And that's really, there's a tool out there called Spiceworks. And so that tool actually, it's very interesting, the business model that they have there, because although it's kind of free, it's not so free because they're capturing your information as you use it. So companies then can sell that information about the IT needs of companies, right? So it's kind of interesting how that works. But there's tools out there like Spiceworks, et cetera, that can help you to to, let's say, monitor and manage services for capacity and availability, and actually sometimes for more than that, like for configuration and so on. Okay, so we'll take a look at that idea in general later on. Okay, going global. So system administrators might actually have to think, what if I work for a company? Think about nowadays, right? Everything is remote. There's a lot of remote work going on, people living in different time zones or in different countries. So you have to sync up all of that, and that might be a bit of a challenge. So system administrators have to worry about those things. Obviously, that's going to involve things like latency with the computer, how, and so on, how fast or slow the network is. Replacing services. So this is very much strongly related to configuration, configuring the services of the computer. You have to factor in network dependencies and all the configuration that goes along with the computer. So I'm pretty sure you guys have configured your Windows machines. It's not, I mean, the same services exist on the Linux side, okay? So that's something else that sysadmins might do. And you will, of course, be doing a lot of configuration this semester of services. That's actually one of the main ideas. Moving a data center, just dealing with everything that a data center is, including cooling, security, and so on. Okay. Dealing with moving to opening a new building, as hopefully you're in a business that's expanding, right? And so you have a lot of growth. And system administrators have to worry about the technical infrastructure, also the services that are provided by third parties. Assessing a site, the due diligence, reassure assisting SA staff that you're there to improve things, document your assessments, so kind of keeping track of the accountability of the system administration task or the help desk. So for instance, a ticket system is usually a good one for that. All orders placed through a ticketing system that there you can then measure, how long it's taking to open, close tickets, etc. Again, the expansion of organizations, mergers and acquisitions, this gets even more complex when you have to deal with networks, right? Multiple networks and network IDs, etc. So this is something that might be covered in your more advanced networking courses. Dealing with machines that crash, major outages, so just the day-to-day help desk of the machine not working and why, and doing updates, etc. Now, what tools does a system administrator need to have? So you can see here, this is a suggestion of some of the tools, a laptop with network diagnostic tools, a packet sniffer like Wireshark. So that's why we'll cover Wireshark or TCP dump. Encrypted SSH services so that you can SSH into machines. We'll cover that. FTP service, dealing with wired and wireless networks. Then, of course, some tools and cables and things like that, right? So that's, just basic troubleshooting, and we'll think about some of those ideas this semester. Another thing that system administrators might do is they might document everything, all their policies. Having a ticketing system is actually good because whenever you have a problem, you should write the solution on the ticket. That way, when somebody gets a ticket similar to that one, they can always just look up. So having, nowadays, all the information is on the web, right? And that's perfectly fine. You should get used to finding your information from the web and trying to solve problems. So certainly documenting things is very important. Also because people change jobs, etc. And system administration is a customer service and knowledge-based profession. So a lot of the knowledge is in your head, right? And so documenting it is useful to train new employees sometimes. All right, and then there's other things like identifying fundamental problems in the environment. Right, so, you know, talking to all the stakeholders, basically, that your bosses at the company, you know, the administration, but also the customers, the people you're trying to serve, etc. So getting a feel for what their needs are, etc. You know, that basically takes us to, you know, senior management. They're the ones that hold the money. So, you know, getting them involved, convincing them sometimes that you need to put in more security or that you need to upgrade systems. That's where something like monitoring your systems might actually be very useful. Okay, so because you can monitor the system, we'll see how with some protocols and some tools we can manage now. You know, we can look at network utilization, and then you can use that information to communicate your needs to management. Now, this one's important, keeping customers and management happy, right? So, you know, TLC, right? So as I said, sysadmin is a very service-oriented job, right? You're there basically to help someone else do their job by helping them with the computer, you know, doing the configuration of the Linux operating system, right? So, you know, right now I'm teaching a course where I need some computers with a lot of computing power, right? And so I need the IT people to help me out to get that set up for my class, right? So we need to get, you know, some GPU boxes basically running. And so that, you know, I'm hoping that they're going to help me, right? So I can do that work, because otherwise what we're doing is just too slow. Okay. And here, you know, keeping systems from being too slow. So you have to constantly, you know, update machines, kind of monitor why they're slow. So maybe they have too many services running on them. You close ports, you want to make sure they don't have like a virus that's slowing them down, etc. So just updating the computer and checking in and that. Those are the basic tasks of a sysadmin. All right, so this, you know, just a reminder what latency versus bandwidth are, so you can take a look at that. And then the rest of these, you can just read through them, you know, but I don't need to list them all out. You can just read through them. But these are basically the tasks of a system administrator. Probably a lot of them, and not all of them. Okay, so but some of this should be enough to give you an idea of how involved the task of sysadmin can be. Okay. All right. So now that I've kind of given you a brief overview or introduction of system administration, we can just dive into the Linux operating system. So today I'm just going to demo a little bit of some of the aspects of Linux, just to kind of get started. Now you might ask, why is this picture here? So if you don't know, you know, what system will we use? Well, we're obviously using Unix and the version of Unix called Linux, Ubuntu. And who are these two gentlemen?
The founders.
Yeah, the founders, right? So these are Ken Thompson and Dennis Ritchie. So, you know, we want to thank them, right? Because they've developed, you know, they helped to develop a very amazing thing with the original Unix operating system. Okay, so they're great guys. I strongly recommend that you know, read through their accomplishments. Okay, in the IT world. I mean, these are people that had a high impact, as Linux is pretty great. All right, so, you know, that's kind of that intro, that picture there. So, all right, and so we will cover this other chapter. I don't usually like to cover too much of the managerial because it can get a little bit boring. So I'll cover this a little bit on Thursday. All right, the next chapter. So if you notice, the way that I have the slides is I kind of followed the book and the chapter names. Okay, so the first one was just an intro of what the system administrators do. This second one is, you know, as it's called, climbing out of the hole, right? So dealing with the problems, you know, trouble ticket systems, etc. I'll come back to these ideas on Wednesday. Okay. And then now what I want to do is, since you guys will be installing, since you guys will be installing your, operating system as part of your homework, I kind of just want you, once you've installed it, I just want to show you what you can do with it, just very, very quickly or briefly, so that you can get started. Okay, so it should be fun. Linux is a fun environment. That you should tell that to yourself every time you're gonna use it. Just say, you know, Linux is fun. I like it. All right, so let's go ahead, and I'm going to start my virtual machine. Okay, so just give me a second. So I've already installed VirtualBox, and I'm just going to start Ubuntu 2004. As I said, if you want to build your own, that's perfectly fine, but it's not required that you do so. All right, so my VM is starting. I'm going to share this in a second here. So I need to... All right, so you should now be seeing the VM. Right, there we go. So that's the Ubuntu. This is 2004. Let me just so the username is seed by default, and the password is D. So that's DEES. This is under VirtualBox, as I said. And I'm just making it a little bit bigger here.
Excuse me. Oh my.
Yeah, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know when you upload this, are you uploading it to YouTube or?
When I upload what?
The recording of the class.
Yeah, I will upload everything to YouTube. It's just easier. If you remember, all you have to do hold on. Is let me actually do this. So I'm going to add a module here. Or under admin, right? Under admin, I'm going to add a link, okay, to the course. So all you have to do is click on that. So here, I'm going to add a link. And I'm just going to say calendar, okay, or schedule or something, maybe videos even. Okay. And so I'm going to hit create here. All right, so now if I go to table of contents, under admin, all you have to do is click on this, okay? Videos, and then go to the calendar. The calendar is going to have the corresponding video for that day. Make sense?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for instance, if you click on, video this, it'll take you to the YouTube, and then you have the video there. Okay. Any other questions, guys? Like that. Okay. So it sounds like there's no questions. So then, as I was saying, once you've installed, once you don't have to install anything, right? So it should be pretty easy. I'll repeat. 2 things you have to do to get to where I am. You have to, let's go here. First thing, go here. You guys see this? Seed Ubuntu, click on that. Then click on Lab Setup, click on that. Then scroll down, select one of these. That's your VM, read the manual, okay? It'll download the zip file, okay? So once it's downloaded, it'll look like that. You see that? Just unzip it. That's that folder that you see there, Seed Ubuntu, that's the VM. Then install VirtualBox. That's your VirtualBox VM. It'll look like this when you launch it, and then just open the machine and run it. So to get VirtualBox, you can just go here, and there's the link, VirtualBox. Okay, guys? Make sense? All right, great. So it sounds like everyone gets it. All right, so now you've done that. You need to do that by Thursday. So now you're ready to get started. So you started up your VM, and it will look like this. Okay. So it'll look like that. That's your VM virtual environment. You can play with the view a bit, so it's a little bit bigger there. And there you go. So this is Linux. So is there anyone in the class that has never used Linux? Show of hands. I think there's a hand feature. I'd like to know that actually. So you should be able to click on a little hand, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you've never used Linux. Okay, some of you have used it. And then a few of you have never used it. Yeah. So some of you haven't used it. That's perfectly fine, right? So that's perfectly fine. Whether you've never used it or whether you have used it, it doesn't really matter, because I will start from scratch, but I will also very quickly move to important topics. Okay, so it's really what's really important is that you follow along. Okay, that's really the main thing. Follow along, do the exercises. Remember, it's not about memorizing anything. It's about just having a sense of how things work. On the exam, I'm not going to ask you for specific commands. It's more, as long as you have a certain idea of how things work, that should be enough. All right, anyway, so this is the Linux environment right here. As you can see, it has a GUI interface initially. So this is the desktop, obviously. I've got a few folders, given that you know, whenever I teach a class, I like to save my file. So for instance, this is a good opportunity for you guys to do this, right? You're gonna be writing scripts or solving things, doing homework. So you're gonna create a new folder. And I'm just gonna call it, you know, ITS 372. And this is gonna be spring 2022. Okay, so that's the spring 2022 folder. There it is. There's our folder right there. And then, you know, some things you can do in the GUI, but for the most part, I'm gonna want you guys to use the terminal heavily. However, today I'll show you some aspects about the GUI. All right, so for instance, as I said, those are some folders. If you click on these little dots, I guess, squares, these are the applications available. You can see there's some programs available. Programs that you will be using include Wireshark, for instance. You know, there's a text editor that's very good. You can play Sudoku, right? Although don't play Sudoku during class. You can update your software. Okay, you have settings, which might be something useful. There's a few applications here that we're not going to use. There's all of these like Office, Excel, etc. So these are the Linux versions of that. There's the browser. Usually we're going to use Mozilla Firefox. For this, you can explore the file system. There's a, you know, and so on. So these are some of the main applications. Obviously, you can add more. It's just got some of the basic things here. On this right side, you have a few of the icons that tell you information about the battery, information about, you know, specific things like shutting down. So here, if you want to turn it off, you click on this, you turn off the computer. The connections, right? The connections that you have in the network, you can click on this little icon as well and just take a look at all of those. Okay, one of the things that you want to first check is you want to make sure that your network is working. Okay, so you want to take a look at some of those. You can click on settings here and it'll open up a whole bunch of settings about the, you know, different aspects of the computer. So you can click on this one, you know, that's your network information. And then you have other things that you can take a look at. However, for the most part, we will be doing things, as I said, on the command line. On this left side, you have a few other things that are helpful, like File Explorer. So this is where you can find some of your files. This is in your home directory. We're going to learn the structure of the file system later on. And we're going to see that it's a little bit more complex than this. Okay, but for now, this is sufficient. This is Wireshark. You can click on that. Starts it up. All right, and then definitely a lot of the reading assignments will be very helpful in just learning Wireshark this semester, playing with it. It's not difficult. It's really just following along and following the clicking, etc. So it should be pretty fun. So obviously this is the browser icon. Okay, that's the browser icon. I'm going to close this. And then here, this is the terminal. Okay, so you're going to click on this icon. And there you go. Now you have a Linux terminal. And this is how we usually do a lot of things in the Unix operating system. All right, we're going to type in commands. Okay, as you can see here right now, it's important just to understand what this is. So for instance, this is the shell or the bash shell. So if you click on this, right, enter, you just get this prompt. In this prompt, you can type things, right? And usually we're going to type commands and then be able to interact with the computer that way. A couple of things that are shown actually in this bash, there's this shell. It's showing the date, of course. So today is January 11th, 2022. It's showing us actually the name of the computer, which is VM, and it's showing us the ID, or that is the username that we are currently logged in as. So we are currently logged in as seed. That's the user account. We're going to learn that seed belongs to a group of super users called the pseudo-RS group. So it's got super user privileges, although currently we are just using it with regular privileges. We're going to learn that there are other accounts like the root account, which have the most power, and others have more limited. So additionally, there's this little symbol here. That little symbol means that the permissions that we currently have, that $ means that the permissions that we currently have are permissions of a simple user, a regular user. These are not super user privileges. Later on, if we were logged in as root, as you will see in some of the labs, this will change from a $ to a £. And the £, just basically means that you are now a super user. Okay. A couple more things. Just quickly, I'll run a few commands. So for instance, let's say that you're kind of lost where you are and you want to know where you are. Good commands to know where you are the Pwd command. So if you type that one, now it's telling you, oh, this is where I am. Which basically means that I'm in, the first / is usually referred to as the root directory, or it's the root, the beginning. And then that root consists of several directories, one of which is the home directory. Okay, and then within home, there is the seed directory. Okay, so for instance, let's say that I want to go back to home, then I just do cd ... cd just means change directory, and the ... just means go back to the previous directory. So if I do that, and now I do pwd, you can see I am in home, no longer in home seed. Now let's say I want to go back to seed, but first I want to see what's contained in this directory. I'm just going to type ls, and it says basically there's only seed. And because it's highlighted in blue, that tells me that it's a directory. Now, if I wanted to do more information, I can type ls-l. You see that? And now it shows the same seed folder, but notice that it's got a lot more information associated with it. So later on, we're going to look at what this means exactly, all this information. For now, we can skip that. But just know it's more information. So someone said something. Yeah. Okay. So that's just some of the ideas. Additionally, we can even have more. So these are usually, that's the original command. And then these are flags. So LA, I think there's an AL, I think, right? And you can see here with the AL, interesting. What happened? It shows me seed as an entry, right? But now it's showing me a few additional things, right? And so as it turns out, everything is a file in Linux, literally everything. And these are kind of like redirection points, but they're technically files. And so even a directory is a file. We'll learn that later. But what this did is it actually showed me like hidden files, etc. Files that were not there. If you notice, if I run this without the A, it doesn't show it anymore. If I run it with the A, it shows it. All right, so these are just, again, I don't want you to memorize any of this, but it's just to kind of show you how things work. At the end of the day, now let's say I have all this information here and I kind of just want it to be, go away, so I'm going to do clear. That clears out this, right? If I type something like history, right, it prints out all the commands that I have typed, and you can see it types like everything I have typed in a long time, right? So a lot of things. So I'm going to do clear here again. One thing to know about even this command ls, it's not a mystery. Ls is basically a file itself. So when I type ls, what I'm doing is I'm actually saying the name of a file. And it's the name of a file that is an executable file. So it's basically what? A script, as we will learn what scripts are. It's a script, but it's a script that has been made executable. So one of the first things you will do, Thursday is you will learn how to make scripts and then learn scripts executable, just like ls. And ls is probably written in bash, but it could be written in Python, something like that. And the key thing is that ls is in a folder called a bins folder. And then in this shell, you have an environment variable. And the environment variable is basically pointing to specific folders like the bin folder. And then the bin folder contains these little scripts, which are files, which are executable. And that's how you can find it. So what's great about Linux is that nothing is a mystery, right? That's the whole point. It's not like, ooh, where does this ls come from? No, it's basically a file that has been made executable. It's located in bin. You can actually go there to bin and take a look at it. And how do we find it from here? Because we have a set of folders, as I said, environment variables that contains a list of folders where you're going to tell the program, hey, whenever I type something on the command line, look for it in one of these folders. Okay, guys? Does this make sense? All right, so that's it for today. So this class is going to run usually from 2 to 3:40. All right, so we're going to end at 3:40 the class. We won't have a break in between, and so that's basically all I wanted to do today. So in summary, today we went over the syllabus. Today, and let me actually stop. So today we went over the syllabus. We went over the course website where I have the calendar and where all the videos hopefully will be linked. Then we introduced what do system administrators do, just kind of give you a taste of what the management part of this is. And then we also went over your homework for Thursday, which is to set up your VM. And then once you get there, just repeat everything I did. You should be able to see it from the video as I post it. Tonight, just repeat all the steps. And so I've introduced you briefly to Linux in general and some of the commands. So I've given you a taste of it. Obviously, we're gonna expand on all of this starting Thursday. So have your VM on Thursday ready, as we will, I will introduce some more Linux commands, and I will introduce some scripting. So I will introduce Python, and then we're gonna basically, all of our Python scripts will be related to sysadmin work on the operating system. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna stop the recording.